Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the program. My name is William Hemsworth. It's great to be with you. I'm excited to introduce our guest, Paul McCusker. He's a writer, dramatist, best known for his work on the long-running children's audio program Adventures in Odyssey. He has written award-winning radio theater productions for the Augustine Institute and Focus on the Family, and numerous novels for readers of all ages. He currently serves as Senior Director of Creative Content for the Augustine Institute, collaborating with the organization on its latest audio drama project, Welcome to Hope Springs. And he lives in Missouri with his wife. Paul, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Bill. It's good to be with you.
Oh, same here. Thanks for taking the time today to come on the program and talk about Hope Springs.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Our mutual friend Carrie, I was reading through some of the notes, and it's based on middle school kids. That's funny. I teach middle school. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Oh,
And as I'm listening to the first episode, I'm listening to the two reporters talk at the train depot.
mm-hmm.
I could not help but start laughing because that is exactly how middle schoolers communicate with each other. I was like, wow.
and these are two grown-ups, but I figured for our audience, the two grown-ups talking like middle schoolers, they would relate.
I was transported to my classroom. I'm on spring break right now. I was like, wow, this reminds me about a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just what was stuff that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been writing children's books and audio dramas for quite a while. Can you share the story behind Welcome to Hope Springs and what makes it stand out in your work?
Well, sure. Basically, it is there's this magical age. It's a wonderful age of sort of this 11, 12-year-old. It's sort of kids are past the little kid spell, that age, and they're not quite adolescents. And there's this wonderful age of this mythical 11 years old that I actually love to write to and write for, because it's such a wonderful age. There just so much is being processed and the way they're growing and developing. And if you write properly, the stories you tell can work for younger kids and they work for older and adults. And so that's what's wonderful about it. The show Adventures in Odyssey that I did for years was geared towards that age. And in the years since I left Odyssey, and I had become Catholic and was trying to figure out, is there something I could do to tell stories from a Catholic perspective? Adventures in Odyssey was definitely coming through an evangelical Protestant filter. And I thought, okay, is it possible to tell stories, modern stories from a Catholic perspective of kids who may be Catholic or not Catholic, but the whole worldview of the show and the stories would be that. And I began to develop this whole idea of this mythical Colorado town called Hope Springs, and decided, unlike Odyssey, which we sort of made up as we went along, that I'm really going to pin down the mythology of this small town, so that I can explore all kinds of different ideas for different age groups. And so 10 years ago, when I started working with the Augustine Institute, I began to develop stories, short stories for our Word of Life curriculum, the Adventures of Nick and Sam books, the Virtue Chronicles. All these books are tied into Hope Springs. Now, you don't have to read them all to engage, but it's kind of like, I don't know, Middle Earth or Marvel Universe or something like that, where they're interconnected but separate, but all taking place in the same area. And I became fascinated about that. And Dr. Tim Gray, the founder and president of the Augustine Institute, and I agreed early on that eventually we wanted to create a series of audio dramas. So the books and all of that helped me develop this world so that now when we get to the audio drama, it's kind of in place stylistically and what the place is. And that's what Welcome to Hope Springs is kind of the culmination of everything I've been working on.
Now, I have to ask, is Hope Springs loosely based on a real town somewhere?
Well, I'll be honest, if you look for it, you won't find it. In fact, the geography that I am presenting for the place, you're not going to find it in Colorado. However, what I lived for years in Colorado Springs, and I'd been to Glenwood Springs and Pagosa Springs. I've been to a lot of the Springs towns, and I've been fascinated by the Western towns, just in general, the Colorado towns. and decided, well, this will sort of be I don't know, a combination maybe of all the bits and bobs and history
Okay.
of those various places. The only common denominator, I suppose, is that they had some sort of springs in them.
Sounds good. Now, we live in media today, there's a lot of video. There's YouTube videos, there's a
Mm.
million streaming services. Why do you think audio dramas are experiencing a resurgence, especially in family entertainment?
Well, I think it's twofold. One is just the devices themselves. I mean, when Adventures in Odyssey started, people thought Focus on the Family was crazy because it was the MTV generation. Odyssey started in like
Yeah.
1986, 87. And people said, why are you doing audio drama? Nobody's listening to audio drama. And for the most part, that was true. And Focus on the Family did it because it was their area of expertise. They knew radio pretty much better than anything. And evangelical radio at the time was growing and exploding. Well, with this, it's the same thing. What I learned over the years was that audio drama engages the imagination at a whole other level. That's different from reading and different from all the visual input you get from, say, TV, movies, or plays, or whatever. So the imagination kind of gets engaged in a personal and almost intimate way, because what you're hearing and the clues there we're presenting through audio drama, because we use actors for every role. We use this, these are not audiobooks, they're actors for every role. We use sound effects, we use custom music. And when you listen to it, there's a very personal experience that's happening as your imagination is creating the pictures. And this is true, especially for kids, because we know kids' imaginations are amazing in what they can depict in there and what they put together. It's so vibrant. And so for us, I think the development and the resurgence of audio, because of the devices, over the last 10 years, we almost take for granted, what was iPods, but now iPhones or
Right.
Androids or whatever. We have all these devices now, and they're portable. You can listen to them in the car. You can listen to them at the gym. You can listen to them in bed at night, whatever the case may be. So the devices kind of created this renaissance of audio in a way that took everybody, I think, off guard. Because you remember they were creating minivans that had DVD players in them.
Right. I have one.
I don't even know that they make those anymore. Because the great thing about audio drama is if you're driving with the kids and you're listening, they can still look out the window at all the great scenery
Yeah.
and also hear a really good story. So it's sort of the best of both worlds, I think.
Yeah. A few years ago, my family and I, we drove to Minnesota, which is about a 3-day drive from where I live here in Tucson. And my sister-in-law recommended we listen to Adventures in Odyssey. And so we did. And the kids the whole way, all right, let's listen to the next episode. That was great. They're talking about it. They're using their imagination. They don't have they're not have I almost said iPod, the iPad up in their face, just looking and like zoning out. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So how does the series Hope Springs spark conversations about character, faith, and different life lessons?
Well, and that's one of the remarkable things that we learned and have learned over the years about the audio dramas, especially with kids, that because it's a very personal thing, I think all storytelling is an opportunity for parents to engage with their kids, whatever it may be. You could be reading Lion, Witch of the Wardrobe, read a book, sit down and talk about the themes, talk about what happened. With audio dramas like, say, Welcome to Hope Springs, some of the characters are going to make decisions that you won't agree with, because not all of the characters are meant to be role models. Their mistakes are being made even by the good guys, so to speak.
Right.
And it's an opportunity. All story is an opportunity for parents to engage in the story, let the kids engage, and then just ask some questions and let the kids talk about how they heard, what they heard, how they process it. And one of the other remarkable things we learned over the years was that because story opens a certain door, certain types of doors for kids, very often they will talk to their parents about things that may not even have anything to do with the story, but might have something to do with an experience they had that day in school or a conflict they had with a friend, something that they might not even mention otherwise because the parents aren't necessarily thinking to ask specifically about certain things. They're not even aware that there is a conflict with a friend or whatever, or that their child is troubled about something or questioning something. And sometimes stories will bring that out. And so I just think that I understand why parents, and I suppose I did that with my kids very often, these devices or TV or whatever can become something of a babysitter. And we want to be able to trust the producers of programs that if we let our kids watch and enjoy, that they're not going to be affected negatively by the experience. But I think, though, that the best thing is for parents to use stories as an opportunity to listen, to ask questions and listen. Maybe gently give advice, but mostly let kids just sort of show parents how they're processing what they've heard and what the characters did or didn't do and what would they have done differently and why do we agree or disagree. And the thing that I always say is whatever we're producing, parents get the last word. You know, they can always stop the machine, they can stop the device, they can always do whatever they need to do to get the last word on whatever was happening, especially if they say disagree with a conclusion. Then you say, okay, whether this is a fantasy story or kind of Hope Springs is sort of, I say mythical, but our catchphrase, by the way, for Hope Springs is it's everyday wonders and eternal mysteries. So we're exploring a lot of ideas in there, and parents can use that. And then, as I say, get the last word about anything we're presenting.
And what are some of the ideas and lessons that you're presenting in the series?
Well, I'm exploring. It's funny. We're exploring, like I say, the everyday themes, and that's hopefully stuff that the kinds of situations and conflicts and questions that kids are going to have in real life, day to day. And sometimes I take a humorous approach, the silliness of life. I always find humor in a lot of things, maybe things that some people wouldn't find funny at all. But I'm always looking for the thing that's funny about human nature, about how we behave. And I explore that a lot relationally. But then I expand beyond there. And in some ways, I guess you could say this is very different from Odyssey, because as a Catholic writer, the Catholic imagination takes in such a, I want to say a bigger world and a world beyond our world. It is that thing that's beyond everyday experience. And so to even nudge listeners in the direction that the world is bigger than we know, and that eternity is even bigger than this world that we are in right now, this framework, as C.S. Lewis called it. It was like the set decorations on a stage, and if you could just punch a hole in the set, you could see the vast eternity reality beyond it. And that's part of what we do with this. So the stories are slice of life, some degree of mystery, and there's even I want to say an acknowledgement of the supernatural, and I don't mean creepy horror. I mean just unusual things that if we read the saints' lives and if we look at Catholic history, the 2,000 years of Christian history, and unusual things that you can point to say, this is a clue. God is allowing this to show us that there's more than we think, and that we're not meant to be at home in this world to the way we often are.
Now, there's 10 episodes released in season one. Are there plans for other seasons in the future?
Yes, actually. And I keep saying this, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but we've already produced season 2, which I believe will come out in May. And we have season 3 recorded. And so we're now in the post-production of season 3, putting all the music and sound effects together. And as of right now, I am working on the scripts for season 4, which I would hope that we'll record sometime this summer. So, we are trying to stay ahead of the curve so that listeners don't have to go too long between seasons, because they are all connected. You could probably put them back to back and you have a continuity of and flow of storytelling. Though you mentioned school, and it's funny, it's not until season 4 that the kids go to school. So far, they're still on their summer break. So everything that's been happening in seasons 1, 2, and 3 are all summertime. So season 4, I finally get them into the classrooms.
So what has been some of the feedback that you've received on this series so far?
Well, so far it's been really good. I think people, and it's funny because we trickled it out. We put them on all the platforms, and then weekly we released the 10 episodes. So they're all out now. But it's funny, you kind of get reactions per episode, and sometimes the reactions are, well, we don't, what's this all about? And of course, all you can say is, well, keep listening and you'll find out. All of this gets resolved by the end of the 10th episode. And so I think the responses, though, have been good from parents and from the kids. The phenomenon with, say, you had with Adventures in Odyssey seems to be happening here, where it's like, can't wait for the next episode. And if it's out, put it on. They want to go straight from one to the next to the next. So that's good news. If my big fear is always that people will just quietly turn things off and not even say anything about it. They just quietly turn away because they're bored or something's not clicking. But so far, it seems to be well received.
Great. Now, you mentioned it's on all the platforms. Can you mention some of the platforms where listeners could go to hear the series and learn more about it?
Yeah, of course. It's on the Formed. Augustine Institute has the Formed platform, which, of course, has been around for a long time. It's there. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora. It's on YouTube. Okay. It's on like all of the major platforms right now. So unless if there isn't a paywall of any sort, it's just there to be heard. We're not charging for it at this point, so it's just there to be heard wherever you tend to listen to things.
Good deal. So check it out, everyone. Before I let you go for the day, Paul, today's the Feast of St. Patrick, and you did a audio drama called The Trials of St. Patrick.
Yes.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on that a little bit, with today being St. Patrick's Day and all. So what prompted you to record that audio drama, and what did you learn about St. Patrick in the process?
Well, when I started working with the Augustine Institute, and I'd been doing tons of radio theater productions, big productions of, huge cast. We were recording in London. And the first one we did at the Augustine Institute was about St. Francis, because he's probably one of the most popular saints. And I really learned for myself that there was a great story to be told there dramatically. And it was the same thing with St. Patrick. I come at these stories almost like a lot of people do, which you have a cursory knowledge of them. But for me to be able to do a drama, I have to dig in pretty deep and figure out what was he doing and what was his background and what was historically happening. And I found him, much like Francis, but in a very different way, to be a fascinating character. And it's more than, shamrocks and green beer and stuff like that. You could do a major series, honestly, a video series or TV series about him and get several seasons, because of all of the stories that are chronicled well. He wrote letters. We don't have a lot of writing, but we have his own account, a couple of accounts of his work and why he did what he did and what he came up against, especially in what we want to call pagan Ireland at the time, or Hibernia as it would have been known. But and I found his story fascinating and inspiring, because unlike the story of Patrick just sort of going into Ireland after having been held a slave there for 7 years, then he left, and then he was called to go back, which some would argue was kind of crazy, but God called him back. And my approach in the story is he didn't just jump in a boat and go back. That his experience there as a slave taught him how to be an effective missionary. So the idea then was he was strategic. He worked through, how do I communicate Christ? How do I take the church to this place in a meaningful way, not just show up and hope for the best, but how do I navigate, let's just call it the pagan politics and the supernatural dynamic forces I'm up against to bring the light into this darkness. And that's the approach that I took with this story, was to tell what led him to go back, and then what he did to go back and be effective, and what he came up against once he got there.
Over the course of your research, can you share with us maybe a story that impacted you the most about him?
Well, I think honestly, one thing was that he did go back. I mean, having escaped the slavery, and I mean, through an arduous experience, and going through this spiritual journey that takes him, he finally gets home to what was then Roman Britain. He gets home, and to be called back from the very place that he had finally escaped from was one major thing. And I often had wondered, I don't know, would I be that brave? I mean, even apart from the feeling like, but I don't want to, I just got away from there. You want me to go back? Really? And
Like that Jonah moment.
Bear in mind too, we have to remember that he was up against some people in the church who weren't even sure that the Irish, as they were, even had souls. It was the same feeling, like Julius Caesar had gone over and got so fed up trying to deal with them that he left it. He's just sort of like, all right, never mind. I'm not even going to try to conquer this. I'm not even sure they're human. I'm not even sure that we want to live there. Forget it. I don't want it part of the empire. And so the discussions about this pagan reality and the way they behave, coming up against, let's call it, a civilized Western reality that existed everywhere else. A lot of people just thought, well, not only is it crazy that God would call you back, but why would he call you back? What a waste of time. But Patrick was determined, and he went. And the other thing that impacted me, was, of course, the reckless obedience, as I keep calling this stuff, is a reckless obedience to a reckless love, for lack of a better way to put it. And then the other was the spiritual fight. I mean, for the tenacity for Patrick to go in and come up against levels of darkness that, again, from his background and from what we would call civilized Western sensibilities, this was just evil. And to come up against it and then persevere in the name of Christ, to go in the name of Christ and say, I'm going to press forward, come what may, to me is inspiring. Because I'm a hobbit. I just stay at home. Getting me to go to the store 2 miles away seems like a big task for me, let alone traveling to another country as a missionary in some of the worst possible circumstances. So those were two big lessons for me from his life.
Okay. And you could check out the Trials of St. Patrick at those platforms that we just mentioned a
Yeah,
little bit
pretty
ago.
much those platforms, and definitely on Formed. And yeah, if you just look it up, it'll show up.
Yeah, when I typed it in last night, Formed was the first place that popped up. Immediately after that was Spotify. Like, it was right there, totally easy to find.
And we also have it also has compact disc packaging for anybody who still uses that. I still do. But if you go to Amazon, for example, or Catholic Marketplace, you'll find, I think, the discs so that you can listen to them on your own if you still have that device.
Great. Besides the future seasons of Hope Spring, is there any other works that you're working on right now?
No, Hope Springs has been all consuming. I still owe readers some more Nick and Sam books and some more of the Virtue Chronicles books. But I've been so busy with the audio drama that I haven't had a chance to do the next installments. So I do need to get back to those.
Okay. Paul, thank you so much for your time today. Everyone, go check out Hope Springs wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. God bless.